Okay.
Got it. Good afternoon. I am Mark McCormick, Chairman of the Kansas African American Affairs Commission, Office of the Kansas Governor. I officially call this meeting of the Kansas African American Affairs Commission on Friday, November 3rd, to order by stating Kansas Open Meeting Act guidelines. Due to distance, health, and safety concerns, members of the public are not in attendance at this meeting. However, full access to this meeting is being provided by a medium of interactive communication. This virtual medium will provide members of the public without cost the ability to listen using teleconferencing as available. The agenda for the meeting has been posted on the Kansas Public Square website and may be requested by emailing the Kansas African American Affairs Commission office at kaaac.ks.gov. Each member of the commission, staff, and guests will state their name and title each time they begin speaking or voting, so that individuals can be readily identified by remote listeners. All participants are required to ensure that microphones, telephones, or electronic devices are muted when not speaking, so that the ability of remote listeners or observers to hear the meeting is not unnecessarily impeded. A public comment opportunity will be provided at the beginning of each commission meeting, following the roll call and chairman's opening comments. During this meeting, the commission will not recess to a closed executive session pursuant to KSA 754319. Each motion, if any, will be clearly stated and restated before the commission, and the chairperson will announce the results of the final vote. Commissioners and guests, please note that this meeting is being recorded. Thank you and welcome to the Kansas African American Affairs Commission meeting. Now time for a roll call. Commissioner Davis.
Present.
Commissioner Lewis.
Present.
Commissioner Penn.
Present.
Commissioner Westbrook.
Present.
Righty. I will accept a motion from the floor about the approval of our agenda.
This is Commissioner Westbrook, so move.
It's been moved. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Davis, second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any question? Any comment? Please signify yay by saying yay or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Hang on a sec. Commissioner Penn? Commissioner Penn?
Here I am. I'm having Bluetooth problems. I'm here. I promise.
And if you can feel free to use the emoji, the raise hand emoji. I'm trying to standardize some things and
Yes.
get things in order. And so one of the things I noticed in terms of what needs to be in minutes and what doesn't need to be in minutes is that if something passes unanimously, I can say it passed unanimously, but if it doesn't, I need to record votes. So I looked up specifically to see if Westbrook came off mute. So I just needed some indication. Thanks. That's all I needed. I can type in passed unanimously.
Do we have any guests from the public today? No. I'll defer my comments since our executive director has already talked a little bit about what was on my mind, but the two things I do want to say very quickly are that we do work really hard to be respectful of your time, and it's our goal to get you out of here in an hour every time we have these meetings. We're going to be talking about the rewriting of the bylaws today, and with that in mind, the old adage about how do you eat a whale, one bite at a time, is apropos here. And I will cede the floor to our executive director.
Okay, this is Stacy now. Hi. So I've been talking about this for a couple of months about the need to address the bylaws. The bylaws are old. The last time they were refreshed was 2011. And as per the audit, the bylaws are some of our governing pieces of documentation, and it's one that we can actually address. I think they're due for a refresh. if for no other reason they state that we meet in person, right? Or for no other reason that they state that there should be 7 standing committees. Well, with a commission that only has 7 members, the idea of having 7 standing committees feels a bit excessive. There are ways that we could approach this. We could create a bylaw committee, but I don't know if any of you have the time or bandwidth to meet outside of our meetings to come up with bylaws independently to bring them back to us. Like, and so in thinking this through, I thought maybe what we should do, and I think I'm gonna find myself continuously going back to the analogy of this is like getting braces on one's teeth. It's that it can be a long and perhaps unpleasant process, but at the end of it, we'll have straight teeth. Is that to take as many meetings as it takes, 1 hour at a time, right? So that it's not like we are not going to finish this today. And I know in terms of on the agenda that was set out, because again, I'm trying to standardize some things like this idea of what should be in minutes, approval of the agenda, approval of minutes. I know that in recent meetings, we need to, I don't know. And this is me asking. So if any of you have the answer, now is your time to give me the answer. What do we need to do so that this can be a continual conversation? I know there was a question, oh, we use the word table. Well, if it means table, then it has to be, how is it in the minutes? It needs to be stricken. Like, I want to know what's the way that we on this screen, mainly y'all, because I'm not a voting member. I'm just the one, oh, here comes Dr. New. Make that note that she's here. Okay. What do we need to do in order for this to be a sort of a rolling conversation? That everyone's okay with saying, we're going to take an hour. We're just going to take an hour and we're going to deal with this for an hour. And then we'll pick it up in the following month. That is my goal. Now, let me share my screen here for a second, because I believe can you see the bylaws? Is that what's showing? Okay. I've got too many screens. All right. In terms of how we amend the bylaws may be amended at any regular meeting of KAAAC by a majority vote of the commissioners present voting, providing there's a quorum. The amendment must be submitted in writing at the previous regular meeting. Rules and procedures shall be adopted and amended at any regular meeting, providing that the amendment has been submitted in writing to all commissioners at least 10 days prior to the meeting in which the action is taken. So here's what I'm going to propose is that we take a meeting, we discuss, we talk it through, we figure out what we want to amend. I type it up, right? And then ahead of the next meeting, I send it out 10 days prior. And then at the next meeting, we vote on whatever we decided to amend. Was that as clear as mud? So even today, no matter what we decide on, nothing's going to change, because today is the discussion point that we come up with what it is we want to amend. I type it up formally. This is the proposed amendment to the bylaws. I send it out ahead, 10 days ahead of next month's meeting. That way at next month's meeting, then we have a vote, provided there's a quorum, and approve that amendment to the bylaws. And that we just sort of repeat that process as we move forward, as long as there's a quorum present. And then that way, unless we want to amend how we amend things, that's my proposal for how we move forward. This is, again, we're not going to finish this today. I'm fine with that. We're probably not going to finish this in 2 meetings. I mean, well, maybe if we're focused with it. Okay, I see a couple hands up. Commissioner McCormick.
This is the chair. I was just going to suggest that we open the floor to discussion. So if there's already another hand up, let's recognize that commissioner.
I didn't see a hand up. I saw Commissioner Penn come off mute for a second, so I thought maybe she was going to pop in, but no. Okay. I don't believe there's any other comment. Commissioner McCormick, there's no other comment. Okay, so now, oh, it's me. Let me see. Too many screens, too many. All right. I've sent out the bylaws a couple times. Have you guys had a chance to glance through them? Yes, so maybe so. One other thing I want to say about the bylaw situation is that bylaws are considered a legal document. So I have been in contact with Justin Witten, who is the governor's office legal counsel, saying this is something that we are undertaking. They needed at least have some visibility, and I asked them, what are some best practices? Is there something that because ultimately we are under the governor's office, so they are going to have a say in what our bylaws say. But I said, as soon as possible, that the commission also primarily, my goal primarily is that the people on this screen are the ones who are going to have the biggest say in the bylaws. But of course, obviously, legal's going to have eyes on it to make sure we're not doing anything illegal. I will tell you, in the past week and a half or so, I have read through the bylaws of KAAC. I've read through KAAC's bylaws. I've read through the Disability Commission bylaws, because we're all sort of the external commissions under the governor's office. The Native American Affairs Office does not have bylaws because she functions differently as a liaison strictly between governments. And I will tell you, I have been surprised at how different all of our bylaws are. Like there seems to be almost little overlap, strangely enough. And I think part of it is that all the commissions came to be at different times, right? With different goals, with different people setting up the commissions. They've come to be at very different times. So for example, the Disabilities Commission has an entire thing about conflict of interest. The KAAC's bylaws have a very detailed description of what should be in an agenda. Ours has this lengthy discussion about committees. And so seemingly the bylaws were written clearly by the people, by the groups themselves, without some sort of overarching, this is what should be in the bylaws. So again, I'm going to stress that I would love it for the commission itself to take on the bylaws. I guess I could go back and share my screen one more time. If there's any ideas about where you would like to start, I think that would be helpful if you've been reading the bylaws or glancing through them. Like, for example, right off the top, I don't even know why it says the official name shall remain the Kansas Advisory Commission on African Affairs. Like, I'm even confused by that. I'm like, why? Where did that come from? Like, I don't know. I don't know. I think I'll check with legal about where that came from, this notion of the official name. Yes, I can see a hand up. Commissioner McCormick. No, oh.
Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to toss out for discussion was how our bylaws don't really indicate that we ever have any real contact with the governor. If we're a liaison between the governor and African American Kansans and we never meet with her, it's kind of hard to fulfill that notion. Now, I'm aware that we cannot demand that the governor meet with us, whenever we like. I would like our bylaws to reflect that we meet with her maybe once a year, maybe every other year, but we ought to have on the calendar at least one meeting where we can bring the concerns from our constituents directly to the governor and have the governor react to those concerns. I just wanted to put that out there.
I see Dr. Lewis has his hand up.
Dr. Lewis, by all means.
Yes, this is Commissioner Lewis. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I'm going to place the language from the statute in the chat, and you can see that last sentence from the statute does indicate that this is an advisory commission, shall be advisory to the governor, and shall be within the governor's office. But how often do we advise the governor? So I certainly wholeheartedly agree with that. And so I would also add that I think, you know, and when we think about the bylaws, we may think about this long document. It's really not that long. It's like 11 or 12 articles that I think we probably can knock out maybe in, as it relates to really just discussing them and then voting at the next meeting, if that's what we choose to do. We probably can knock this out in 2 to 4 meetings. And I think a good place to start is with things like this, with the name, as well as the mission. First and foremost, I would start with the mission and indicate if this is the mission that we're still about, particularly as it relates to the research part of our current mission.
See Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, Commissioner Davis.
Sorry, just had to get the mute off. Would we have the ability to write in our own bylaws that we have a mandated meeting with the governor? Or would that be something we just do and put it in until someone tells us we can't do that?
This is the chair.
But I'd be in favor of that.
Yeah, this is the chair, Commissioner Davis. That was kind of my thought, that I thought our bylaws ought to aspire to one meeting with her a year at least. While like also acknowledging that we can't make her or whoever's the governor, you know, meet with us whenever, but it should be our aspiration to be in regular annual contact at the minimum with the governor's office. That was my thought. As the chair again, Executive Director Nell, do you have any thoughts or insights to add to that?
Right. So I agree. I think this idea of so what's the wording? It would be difficult to my mind to put in our bylaws any kind of, and I'm going to say the word demand. There may be another word than demand. Requirement on the actions of some other group. And so it would be, but what I can say is, since we are advisory, I could say, and the wording that I was kind of thinking of is that if there is some sort of annual report or some sort of compilation of information that commissioners, and I say commissioners because I don't necessarily even mean the 7 of you who are on the commission right now. Like the work that we're doing now may not even necessarily pertain to the people who are on the screen right now. We're riding the ship for the sake of the future of the commission. So if commissioners are hand in to the executive director, again, may not even be me. This is what we're hearing from our constituency. This is what we're learning. This is what's important to our people. This is where we're, in wherever it is we learn. The executive director could compile all that information and say, we're going to present this to the governor's office. We are an advisory to the governor. We do not serve the legislature. We are not in the legislative branch. So we could say that this is something that will be presented to the governor. Now that's something that that's us taking control of what we're going to do. Whether or not the governor, whomever that may be, because let's face it, it's not going to be Kelly in 4 years, right? Because she can't run again. Whoever the governor may be, now whether that governor takes the meeting, reads the report, fill in the blank, we will have no control over, but we can at least say, we're going to put together this report and we're going to present it. We are going to present it to the governor, because then that says that's what we're going to do. And then it sort of kicks the ball into whomever the governor's going to be, to their court, saying, okay, now it's on you to say yay or nay. I will say that in the current administration, getting a meeting with the governor, when I have talked to the governor about issues, I have not, and this, for better or for worse, I don't just walk over and knock on the door and say, hey, they want to know, what is it you're going to talk about? And not just go over there and complain. If I'm going to go over there and complain, I better have at least 2 solutions as well. So I think this idea, if we put it in our bylaws, once a year, we will come with, these are the things that are important. Like, and again, wording, please. This is why I'm like, let's do this by everyone pull it together. That we will present a report. And oh, and let me say this, a report. This idea of an annual report, I very strongly believe that it can be, given the size of this commission, given the fact that I'm a staff of one, maybe with an intern or, you know, a shared administrative assistant. We are not, you know, the Kansas Department of Transportation. So any kind of report that comes out of KAAC is going to be different than a report that would come out of KDHE. I think the report doesn't have to be, I think it can be whatever we make it. And so because I kind of picture in my brain, if the commissioners every month submit to the executive director, or we can even say every quarter, again, it's up to us to write. If the commissioners every month or every quarter submit to the executive director a paragraph, this is what I've done. This is what I've learned. This is, I went to this NAACP meeting. I went to this event with Storytime Village. I went to this event with the Kansas Black Republicans. I went to this event, you know, and these are the things I'm hearing. These are the things I'm learning. If once a quarter, once a month, whatever, that gets to the executive director. The executive director compiles it into some sort of annual, this is what the commissioners have been doing. Because quite frankly, some of the biggest criticisms against this commission is that we're not doing anything. Now, I know that's not true, but we're not putting out anything that sort of shows what we're doing, because none of our guiding documents tell us that we have to. If this even, I mean, we're talking a paragraph. It does not, I'm not picturing this being some 15-page, you know, full color charts, graphs. It could be a couple of pages, right? And I'm thinking of myself, if I got a paragraph from you guys once a month, once a quarter, whatever, then I would be reading it. The executive director would read, are there any commonalities, or so is there themes I can pull out? Is there something that's rising to the top? Is there something that seems to be a common theme? Because then when I write the decision memo to get in front of the governor, it could be the African American Affairs Commission. We've noticed these 3 themes in the Black community. We've got these ideas, these insights, these suggestions, and you know, we're an advisory role. Here's our advice on the situation. So that's going to the governor, whomever it may be. Because again, it's easy to get tied to who's the governor right now, but these bylaws are going to be in place beyond the current administration. These bylaws are going to be in place potentially beyond any of us being involved with this group, right? I mean, if it takes another 13 years before the bylaws get refreshed, unless you guys plan on being on the commission for 13 years, you know, keep that in mind, that we're trying to do work here to make sure that this commission is well suited. So I like the idea of an annual report to the governor, right? I think that's makes sense if we're advisory to the governor to put it in our because I'll tell you, if it's in the bylaws, because I've read these bylaws up one side and down another, and there's a lot of people who say, Stacey, you should do X, Y, Z, and I'm like, you know what? It's not in the bylaws. I don't have to do it. But if it's in the bylaws, then we would have to do it. Or the future commission would have to do it. So, you know, the question is, do you want that in the bylaws, or do you not want that in the bylaws? Question. So I see Trent Davis has his hand up.
Yes, Dr. Davis.
Sorry, this Commissioner Davis, I think that's a great thing to put in as an expected function of this organization. I was trying to scroll down real quick to see where it would go. I was just going to stick it right there in front with the mission, but I'm sure that duties would probably be a better place to put it. But that way, the governor also expects to get a report from us. So there's a two-way expectation.
Dr. Lewis, did you have a comment, sir?
Yes, thank you. This is Commissioner Lewis. I agree that they definitely could go in duties. And if we look at Article 4, A and B, 1A obviously talks about the commission acting as an advisory to the governor. B really speaks to what we're talking about: gather and disseminate information and conduct hearing conferences and special studies. And from these special studies could yield a report to the governor. I was also thinking about the work within our committees, whether it's economic or education or any other special projects. Could some reports come through those committees as well? Or as an entire commission, you know, do we focus on one or two things within the report, do it and do it well? Or, you know, obviously if we try to focus on too many things, we small commission. So for example, each year, I believe we should have some type of legislative priorities, you know, from the legislative committee. But then thinking about that special report, will it encompass the special report to the governor? Will it encompass some things that are coming out of the commission committees, or within that Article 2B bylaw that says we're to conduct hearings in our respective districts, or conferences or special projects and things that are coming out from the community. You know, because as a commission, we can talk about things that are going on in the state of Black Kansas, but having maybe some public hearings, some meetings with some folks, and some special studies within our district that will yield some concerns for African Americans, Kansans across the state, that will inform our work to the governor as to how we advise the governor. Just a thought.
Here, I think those are great thoughts. One of the challenges that I've had with some of our critics is that they've been demanding these reports and they've been demanding town hall meetings. Well, it takes resources to produce those, and we don't have those kinds of resources. Makes me wonder if at some point, whether or not this organization is going to have to do some fundraising of its own, or asking for funding, you know, to meet these demands. And you may or may not remember, but we had a legislator guest who announced a plan to make an addition to the statute demanding that we have town hall meetings. And another guest correctly pointed out, well, that's kind of an unfunded mandate. If you're going to demand that we have these town hall meetings, but there's no funding for it, that's really not fair. That's probably something we need to be thinking about in our future as well. This is the chair again. Any additional thoughts, Executive Director? No,
but I do want to, I mean, I one of the reasons why I feel like I wanted to take time with everyone here is to make sure as many people weigh in as possible. So like Commissioner Westbrook, Commissioner Penn, Commissioner New, this is not, I mean, I really do want to hear everyone's thoughts on this, right? Because you know, I feel like in a very real way, our hand has been forced into this, but I am here for the work. I'm like, because this is the thing I've wanted to do since jump, is right the ship. And I feel like this is our opportunity to think about, okay, as this commission moves forward, this commission's going to be here beyond any of us being on the commission. This commission's going to be here beyond the Kelly administration. So if we can get the commission set up in a way to try to set it up for success in the future, to actually have an impact on the Black community, I'm like, let's do it. This may take us some time, but I'm like, and so I want to make sure that this is a process that includes as many voices as possible. I see.
Dr. New?
Yes, thank you so much. I apologize. I'm transitioning from another engagement, but I've listened to discussion. I agree with what Dr. Lewis stated, that perhaps we should, take this in incremental pieces and work it through. But I also agree that it does seem like something we can do, and it should build a foundation for the next set of commissioners and the next governor. I will say also, I'm on the Kansas Advisory Group for Juvenile Justice, and we do present an annual report to the governor's staff. So not necessarily to her, but she does get an annual report of what we are working on. So I don't think anything related, in that manner would be out of the question or out of the norm for her expectations.
As the chair, thank you, Dr. New. Commissioners Westbrook and Penn, any thoughts on this process?
Hey, I'm loving it. The annual reports would be a great way for us to show the community, or at least to our constituents, what we've been working on or doing. I've always kind of struggled with getting the word out. How exactly, do we tell people our movements? And because I've been attending different events out here, just trying to get a good understanding and trying to get a good, the pulse of the Black community in my area. And the NAACP, and I think you mentioned about the Storybook Village, and just meeting some of the who's here in Wichita. So I think it'll be a great idea just to, even if it's just a paragraph long, to let our constituents know, and also the governor and her staff, to let her know, like, hey, this is what's going on, these are the pressing issues, and these are our solutions versus like what Executive Director Nell was saying. We're not coming there just with their problems, we're also offering solutions as well. So I think that'll be a great way to do that.
Dr. Davis?
Yeah, there's one thing in the mission statement that I think is missing. And when people ask, what our commission does, who do we work for, who do we work with, we're a conduit, but it doesn't define the two ends of that conduit. Where are we bringing information from, and who are we giving it to, or who are we advising? I'd like to see something specific in our commission. We're a conduit, but to the legislature, to the governor, it's just kind of a vague statement.
This is Executive Director David, or Executive Director Davis. This is Executive Director Nell. Okay, then that may be a sentence that in the next half an hour we can come up with, right? That'll give us something concrete that I can type up, and 10 days ahead of the next meeting, I can say, this is the proposed change to the amendment, and then we can vote on that at the top of next meeting. So the mission statement, in case you don't have your copy pulled up right in front of you, screen 2. The mission statement currently reads, the Kansas African American Affairs Commission serves as a conduit for legislation, policy, programs, and research to address the concerns of the African American community in the state of Kansas. So maybe that's one sentence that we can get a better wording for, to better indicate what we are. I think the next thing I'm going to do is pull up the statute. Or wait, I don't need to pull up the statute. I got a hard copy. I don't need to do all this thing. Electric. Because does the statute indicate that we... Okay, yes, the statute says we're advisory to the governor. It is hereby established that the Advisory Commission on African American Affairs, the Advisory Commission shall be an advisory to the governor and shall be within the office of the governor. So possibly what we need to do is change the wording of the mission to say it's advisory to the governor and not just leave it open-ended.
This is the chair. The language about us being a conduit with respect to legislation feels problematic to me because we've had legislators who seemed to believe that we were an extension of their caucus. Maybe we need some clarity there as well. Dr. Davis, you have another comment, or is your hand still up?
Yes, Commissioner
Go
Davis.
ahead.
You know, and if we say we're advisory to the governor, I would like there to be some reasonable expectation of how that communication occurs, how frequently. Um, I don't get the impression that anyone necessarily reaches out to us to get our opinion on issues that might affect us. We can introduce our opinion or send it, but that description, at least to me, makes it sound as though we're a little loftier than our actual status is.
We want to start some wording. We can start figuring it out. I know Commissioner Westbrook, you've been quiet. I don't want to ignore you.
Oh, you're not ignoring me. I've been coughing from my allergies, so no, I'm here. I'm totally in agreement with everyone in regards to as the chair mentioned, taking it bite by bite and being intentional on how we restructure and just review. So no, I'm totally here. Sorry.
This is Commissioner Lewis. I'm just thinking out loud here, just interested in reaction from other commissioners. Again, it's just totally brainstorm. The Kansas African American Affairs Commission serves as a conduit from the African American community to the governor to inform policy, et cetera, et cetera. Just trying to think about what Commissioner Davis talked about in terms of the two ends of that conduit. One is African American Affairs, African American community, and to the governor to inform policy, maybe to inform legislation programs that affect the African American community in the state of Kansas.
Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, I like that rewording of the first part of the paragraph. I was going to add, serve as a resource for the governor in the legislative body. But I think the way Commissioner Lewis phrased it, at least that does say where this information is coming from and to where they'd like to get it. But I think his rewording is heading in the right direction.
This is the chair again. I'm wondering if we could merge some of the thoughts from Commissioner Davis and some of the thoughts from our executive director and have a clause that says something to the effect that while we are advising, we will advise the governor via a written document and one meeting a year, and have that kind of specificity in there to make clear that we'll have an annual report and then we'll make an attempt to meet with the governor once a year.
Dr. Lewis, please go ahead.
I was just going to ask, is that something that should come within the duties in Article 4?
That's what I was
the
going to ask. That's what I was going to ask. The mission statement, because right now I've typed up. The mission statement says the Kansas African American Affairs Commission serves as a conduit. I guess between is a better word. The African American community and the governor to inform policy, legislation, and programs that impact the African American community in Kansas.
I like that wording.
To inform policy, legislation, and programs that impact the African American. Okay, I will tell you, as per the audit, words like "and" get sticky. Because they imply that you're going to do all three of those things. So, and again, this may be a question for legal. Because that's part of the problem right now is that y'all are supposed to be doing like A through H worth of stuff. And we had to deal with, what does shall mean? What does and mean? Depends on what definition of is, right? And so, you know, this word and is raising a tiny little flag in the back of my brain, because are we saddling future commissions with, well, you have to do all three because it says the word and again, that may be a question for legal, but I want to just toss that out, that maybe and needs to be or and slash or, you know, something.
This is the commission, this is the chair. Is this, you're sharing your screen, correct?
I'm sharing screen with the bylaws. Yeah.
Can you pump that up a size or two?
Oh,
Some of us are chronologically gifted, and so are our eyes.
is that better? Oh, wait, where to go? Where's the mission?
Yeah.
There's the mission.
Yes, Dr. Davis.
If our mission is defined in that fashion, would that preclude us from giving testimony on bills in the legislature?
No, but I think, and those of you who have served on various boards and who have worked with bylaws in various ways, shapes and form might want to weigh in. I think we will be better served having the bylaws be a little more broad as opposed to being more narrow. Like, I like the word or better than the word and, if that makes any sense. I don't think we need to necessarily include, we will be giving testimony in front of the legislature, because at some point, again, who knows who's going to be sitting in my seat? Who knows who's going to be sitting in the governorship? Who knows who's going to be sitting in y'all seats? If we put in that the commission will provide testimony, at some point there's going to be an audit and someone's going to say, you guys aren't providing testimony. Right?
Suggest that this is the chair. I was going to suggest that before the word legislation, we just say as a conduit for issues that include legislation, and in that litany, and the word include would not bind us to having to do all of them. And that would address your concern about the word and. Yes, Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, and the reason I asked Commissioner Davis is that looking under the duties, unless I'm missing it, I don't see giving public testimony to the legislative committees as one of our duties yet. We do it. I would dare say we're expected to do it. People have come to expect us to do it. And I did not want our doing that to be outside of our mission. Board duties. I mean, it could be listed either place, but I didn't want either one to be restricted so that someone would say, well, why are you? That's not part of your role. And if our only mission is to advise the governor, then one would think the governor would have to clear our testimony. It's probably more rhetorical thoughts. I just wanted to get the feedback on that.
Well, the governor's office would not have, this is executive director now, the governor's office wouldn't have to clear y'all's testimony. Right? Like, because you guys are all.
This is the chair. That would just be for you.
Yeah.
Executive director now.
At least, I mean, okay, again, I'm trying to set this up for the future commission, for the future governors, and for the future executive director. Because currently, the way, and again, the way I've approached it is y'all grown. I feel like I've said this 1,000 times. Y'all grown, and I don't have editorial power or veto power over anything that you do. You're not paid by this commission. You're not paid by the administration. The executive director is under a different set of guidelines because they are paid by the administration, right? So if I mean, I think we could probably include it in a list of duties, paying attention to this idea of and or issues surrounding it's an opportunity to, or quite frankly, we could leave it out completely. Because if there's some year where for whatever reason, again, I don't know if there's some year where for whatever reason the commission decides not to provide testimony, I would hate for them to be saddled with, well, this says that you should, right? If there's some year that the commission doesn't fundraise and they can't do a research project, I don't know if we should saddle them with, well, you have to, because your bylaws state you have to. If there's some year that the commission has a global pandemic and the bylaws state that we meet in person, right? Like I'm sort of, you know, because it isn't always going to be us. It's not always going to be this governor. It's not always going to be this legislature.
Yes, Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, every organization I've worked with, when you get into bylaws and folks get in trouble, the words should and will are very dangerous words to have sometimes if it's not something that you plan to do on a regular basis. Because you are then setting yourself up for being out of compliance if you don't do it. I like the words include, can, you know, where you have an option like for our committees. You know, there should be something that says, in fact, you know, these are the topics that committees should cover or up to our staffing ability. Not something that says you must have all seven. Those two words can be problematic.
I don't know if everyone can see the chat. That's kind of where I'm at now. The Kansas African American Affairs Commission serves as a conduit between the African American community and the governor to inform issues that include policy, legislation, or programs that impact. No.
That construction is awkward.
It's why we're doing it by committee and we're not doing it with just me by myself. I'm just trying to capture ideas about. Yeah, so please, by all means, rewrite it.
Yeah, I would have said.
Feel free to rewrite it.
To inform the governor on issues that include.
Okay. That is a simple edit.
Okay, that's better. This is the chair. Commissioners, what do you think? And bear in mind, we're approaching our time boundary.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice if we could put a bow on this for next week, for us to vote on for next week.
Next month.
Next week, next meeting. Sorry. Got a thumbs up from Commissioner Davis. Thumbs up from Commissioner Westbrook.
This is Commissioner New. I agree.
Oh, thumbs up from Commissioner New.
This is, can I share?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Commissioner Lewis, I know we are coming up on time boundary. For the sake of time, and I'm kind of concrete sequential here. Article 2 looks like it comes from the statute, and we doesn't look like we can change too much of that. Am I correct? That talks about our authority.
Yes.
And then Article 1, there were some questions within the name. So if we could be able to end today and say that we have looked at or revised Articles 1, 2, and 3, I think we've accomplished a lot. Just a thought. I know there were some questions about the name in Article 1. And as I mentioned, doesn't look like we can change much in Article 2. And then we've made some revisions to Article 3. And then next meeting, we can begin looking at the duties.
I think, since I pulled out my hard copy of the statute here, I think the name in Article 1 where it says the official name shall remain, because according to the statute, that is the official name. And we're not changing the statute. So I think it's this idea that everyone calls KAAAC, but the government name, KAAC's government name, is the Advisory Commission on African American Affairs.
Okay.
So
even better, we've accomplished Articles 1 through 3 today.
Yeah. Are we okay with the wording that's in the chat? And I do want to definitely hear from Commissioner.
Yeah, we need to hear from everyone. This is the chair. We need to hear from everyone before we close out in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Westbrook. I'm in total agreement with the wording. It seems appropriate, and I'm looking over it just one more time, but it definitely seems appropriate for us and then also for future commissions.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Yep, I'm on board too. This is Commissioner Penn. I'm on board too. Just trying to follow along here.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So what I will do is I will officially retype, right? Because this PDF, you can't edit it. So I will retype Articles 1, 2, and 3 with this new language. I will officially send it out at least 10 days ahead of the next meeting. That way, the first order of business will be to meet to approve this amendment to the bylaws. And then we'll do this again next month. Now that you know what's coming, if there's a section that you're like, oh, I think this is something we should definitely take on, let me know, because then I'll put it in the agenda, right? Like this is, we'll just piecemeal it out. Maybe the next thing we take on is, well, I don't know, the duty section is kind of large. I think one of the quicker things we probably should take on is maybe amending the bylaws to say that there's not seven standing committees. That seems a bit excessive. So that's just something to think about, but fantastic.
Great.
Okay.
I guess
This is Commissioner Westbrook. I had a quick question. Just as a police officer, we have our own laws, and I don't mean to belabor this, but when it comes to inform, the word inform, are we just letting her know what's going on, or are we offering suggestions in regards to advising and how she can, with her power and legislate, in the legislative branch of our government here, our local or state government here? I'm just kind of pondering on that. So are we just simply a voice, or are we advising her, like giving her suggestions as how to move forward, or are we just simply a voice?
this is the chair. That all depends, it seems to me, on the relationship that an individual commission would have with that particular governor. If there was a governor who particularly valued our opinion, we'd be doing more than advising. If not, we'd be a voice. It just kind of depends on the political landscape at the time. That's my best guess. What do you say, Executive Director Nell?
Yeah, I think that's the situation. If we have it in our bylaws that, well, the statute says we are advisory to the governor, right? The statute says that it's advisory to the governor. If we put in our bylaws that we are going to inform the governor, and I'm okay with the connotation that inform means to offer up suggestions, advisory, in that advisory capacity, because I believe that is potentially, that is one of the levers that this commission would have, that they, in statute and by bylaws, have access to the governor's office. Now, what that governor does with the advice, right? I mean, I can tell you for sure, I've had meetings with the governor where I've said, I think you should do XYZ, and she has said no. Now, one major one, she has changed her mind. Like, I've gone to her twice about Juneteenth. I went with her, I went by myself and said I would love for us to have Juneteenth for a holiday, and she said no. And I took one other time where I took Beryl and Denise Sherman and Norma Avery and said, you're gonna have to tell them no. And she said no, and then she changed her mind, right? So do you know what I mean? Like governors are gonna do what governors are gonna do.
Yeah, this is the chair. Let's get to Commissioner Lewis before we have to go.
Thank you. This is Commissioner Lewis. Definitely reflecting on what Commissioner Westbrook shared. Maybe it's semantics in terms of the word inform versus advise. I don't know if that will help that or not. Because when I think about informing somebody, I'm just giving them information. But when we're advising her on these issues that we have, hopefully some data to support.
And there's an element of direction there. Is what yeah.
Right. And then the last thing I would say, Commissioner Nail, I think what will help is I think duties should be the one that we tackle next at our next meeting. But I'm also looking at some that, again, by statute are in there that, so if you can identify those articles that by statute we probably can't touch, and the ones that we need to work on in a meeting, I think that will be helpful.
Be great. We've reached our time boundary. I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Hang on. I just want to do this. One last proposed wording. The Kansas African American Affairs Commission serves as a conduit between the African American community and the governor to advise the governor on issues that include policy, legislation, or programs that impact the African American community in Kansas. Using the word advise is in line with the statutes because the statute says we are advisory to the governor. So that might be one way to streamline to make sure that the bylaws and the statute are in nice agreement that they both use the word advise.
That's good.
We good? Commissioner Penn, Commissioner New?
Yeah, they're applauding.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I'll take that. I'll accept that motion to adjourn.
Wait, who did it?
I didn't hear yet.
Who moved for adjournment?
I didn't hear
So
yet.
moved. Commissioner New, so moved.
Yes, I moved.
Is Commissioner Lewis a second?
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Thanks, guys.
Oh,
Okay.
motion passed. Great
Thank
meeting.
you.
Great meeting,
Perfect.
everybody.
Thank you all.
See you next
Bye-bye.
month.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.